Okay, now we're going to look at a for each loop, and a for each loop can best be explained by looking at some code. So let me write a new subprocedure here. I'm just going to go into my loops module and I'm going to write this code. Here we go. Sub for each loop worksheets. And what I'm going to do is bring up the for next loop, the very simple example, and just remind you of what this does. The for next loop, remember, it loops over a range of numbers. And it starts at whatever number you initialize it, like I is equal to 1, and it loops up to 100, and each time through the loop, I is incremented by 1. I'm going to delete this code. A for each loop is pretty much just an alteration of this. Instead of looping over numbers, now we're going to loop over a collection of objects. And you remember what objects are. I'm sure you do because we spent a lot of time on it. And here's what a for each loop looks like. It looks like this. For each, object in collection. So, collection of objects. So this is a very generic way of understanding what a for each loop does. You have a collection of objects, and I'll talk about that in a second. And all you're doing is for each object in that collection of objects, you are going to loop over that. And after you do something with one of those elements, one of those objects in that collection, you're going to go on to the next object in that collection. So this is what it looks like. Now, how would we actually implement this? Well, we saw in the variables video that we could declare variables like dim x as int. You can also, or x as integer. You can also declare variables to be objects. So you could do something like this, dim ws as worksheet. So now you are going to work with an actual object, a worksheet. And when I say worksheet, I mean here's what you're going to be working with. This worksheet or this worksheet. In fact, this workbook contains a collection of worksheets, and there's 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a collection of 6 worksheets in this workbook, and we can loop over them using this for each loop by making our object that we're going to the object that we're going to look into the collection, not look into the collection, but the object that we're going to be working with is a worksheet object. So there's our worksheet object. And then the collection of objects is going to be worksheets. And this worksheets is the collection of worksheets in the workbook. And then this next, instead of having just a generic object, it has to be something that you know that it has to be the same as this object here. So what we're basically doing here is, here's a collection of worksheets, and we can loop through the collection and do something like for each worksheet in this collection of worksheets, we can do stuff with. We can work with this worksheet object. So in our case, this worksheets collection has 6 worksheet objects, and each time through the loop, this WS worksheet object is going to be different. The first time through the loop, it's going to be this worksheet here, if, and then the next time through the loop it'll be this one, and then the next time through the loop it'll be this one. So we can do things like loop over all the worksheets and do stuff with that. And the for each loop is pretty straightforward. You just write the words for each, which are keywords. Then you put, as we've seen, the object that you're working with, whatever object it is. We declared a worksheet object up here. And then you put the keyword in, and then the collection you're going to loop through. And then to end the for each loop, you put next and then the name of the object you're working with. And then you could do things like this. So for each worksheet, let's select it, and let's put a message box, ws.name. So what we're going to see here is that we're going to loop through all these worksheets and select them, and then a message box will pop up with the name of the worksheet. And remember, since worksheet is an object, we can use the dot operator, access its properties, all that stuff that we already know. And here's all kinds of stuff, right? So we just want to focus on the name for the simple example. So when I run this, I get if in a message box, and the if worksheet is selected. Then I click OK, and I get goodbye. The goodbye worksheet is selected, and I get goodbye in a message box. Then I get sheet 4, it's selected, and sheet 4 is in a message box. Then I get sheet 5 is selected, sheet 5 is in a message box, and so on, right? Loops. So it did exactly what we thought it would do. It looped over the collection of worksheet objects, and we're able to access things about that worksheet object. But the really cool part is that each time through the loop, you're working with different worksheets. The first time I'm working with this worksheet, then I'm working with this worksheet. So you can, if you want to loop through all the worksheets and like check stuff or perform actions, you could do something like if only show the message box if ws.name is equal to loops. Then I'm going to end if here. So now I can sort of loop through every single worksheet and do certain code. I can check if I'm on the loops tab, I want to do this, or if I'm on the goodbye tab, I want to do that. And we could do that with the conditional statements. You could use if else's, and else ifs, and all that stuff. So let's run this now, and now we should only get one message box, even though it's going to loop through all 6 of them. I didn't name it. I didn't put this in here properly. Notice the worksheet is a capital L and I had a small l. So let me run that again. And there it is. We get a message box with loops in it because when we loop through the collection of worksheets, we only want to show a message box when the name of the worksheet, ws, is equal to loops. ws.names is equal to loop. ws.name. So this is pretty useful stuff because now you can loop through worksheets. You can loop through cells. We're going to do a video where we loop through a range of cells. So you select a range and we loop over that. And there's just a ton of different things you can do with this. But it makes you get more control over your workbook. You know, we saw in earlier videos how you can control the worksheet by maneuvering down rows, across columns, or down diagonally, or finding the last row. Now you can move across worksheets. You can loop through all the worksheets and do stuff. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to loop over a range of cells. So if you thought this was interesting, going from worksheet to worksheet, going through the cells is probably a bit more interesting. So on to the next video.